So, are there any trends in the choice of neutral treatment of distribution systems, say below 100 kV?
Well, indeed, I can identify some, but I suppose it's probably better to just do a little historical lesson to put things in context. So, historically in Europe and Asia, the most common approach would be non-effectively earthed systems. So, the likes of isolated neutral at the start. Then, as the capacitive currents got bigger, migrating into compensated neutral, also known as arc suppressed or Peterson coil earthing. And they would have had appropriate protection in place even from the 1920s. In the UK and many of its former colonies, they adopted a slightly different approach, and that was to earth the neutral, either directly or through a low resistance. That meant that they were able to use either their phase overcurrent protection or their residual overcurrent protection. And then in the USA, they went a step further by introducing that force wire, grounding the neutral at multiple points and generating very, very significant currents to make sure they could operate these phase over current devices. So against that historical background, we can see some notable migrations in certainly more recent decades. EDF in France in the early 2000s, they moved from resistance earth networks to compensated or arc suppressed. And the driver for that was looking across the border at the German, Austrian, Swiss network performances, where their SAIDI and SAFI were much higher due to the use of compensated neutral. So that was the driver for them to move across. A little while later, but in the same decade, I guess, ENEL in Italy, they moved from isolated neutral to compensated neutral. I believe the driver there was just increasing cables coming on the system, the capacitive currents getting too high for isolated neutral operation to be successful. Then I guess more recently we can see in Victoria State in Australia, where they had a real wildfire issue. So they introduced compensated neutral with active injection, having been typical UK practice of an earthed or resistance earthed neutral. So with that approach, they seem to have been successful in being able to mitigate the frequency of electrical system initiated wildfires. And indeed, in Southern California, we see similar things happen there just now. On the other direction, going from high impedance, sorry, non-effectively earth systems like isolated or arc suppressed back to maybe a resistance earth approach. You may see that in some of the older cities around continental Europe, where their cable systems are relatively old insulation at this stage, and maybe the earth fault protection that they had in place was not really great. So some of those have migrated towards resistance earthing, partly to eliminate the risk of cross-country earth faults and cascade tripping. An alternative approach to that, of course, is just to introduce modern standard earth fault protection. But yeah, that's a quick summary of some of the trends I've been seeing.